They say that the edit is the final rewrite, and that was certainly true for Annabelle 2. The script for the movie was something like 117 pages, which is pretty long for a horror movie, but the script was also quite dense. There were a lot of things going on. The first cut of the film was over 2 hours, and it just felt too long. One of the first scenes to go was an early scene between Samuel and Esther. Esther is sewing one of the dresses for the Annabelle dolls when Samuel comes in from the workshop. It was a scene we did in one long take, which can be fun to do, but it really limits you when you get to the editing room.
I take it you're finished.
The dolls are done. Yeah. Where's B?
Upstairs, asleep.
You don't say.
But you seem so exhausted, Samuel.
No. It was just pretend.
Oh, you don't say.
The point of the scene was just to show the happy times before everything went bad, but it felt like we got that from the other scenes, and this just made a long beginning even longer. One of the bigger changes was cutting out Sister Charlotte's backstory. Originally, we found out that Charlotte had lost a child of her own. We had a scene where she tells Mrs. Mullins how she got pregnant, and because she was a nun or becoming a nun, she gave the child up. She later found out that her son had died at the age of 7 when he fell through a frozen lake and got trapped underneath the ice. This would come back and haunt her in 2 scenes.
I have to.
The first time, she wakes up in the middle of the night when she hears scratching underneath her bed. When she holds a light underneath the bed, she sees that the light projects a shadow of a little boy clawing at her bed as if he's trapped underneath ice.
Mommy?
The second time was towards the end when Janice takes the form of her son and berates Charlotte for giving him up. A version of this scene is of course still in the film, but we only used footage of Janice.
Why'd you give me away?
Padre nuestro que estás en el cielo, santificado sea tu nombre.
Where were you?
Venga a nosotros tu reino.
When I was trapped on the ice and drowning.
Hágase tu voluntad aquí en la tierra
You
como...
should have saved me.
Another scene with Charlotte that we cut took place during the first night in the house. Charlotte walks downstairs, hears what sounds like a child's laughter, and goes to investigate. We had one of the PAs run by in the background as a creepy shadow. There's some nice looking images in this scene as Charlotte walks through the house and she almost gets a peek at Mrs. Mullins. This scene stayed in the movie for a long time. It was actually right before a test screening when we were checking the projection of the film that I felt this scene had to go. We needed to get to Janice walking into B's room quicker because that's the really fun stuff. So I asked my editor, Michelle, if she could hurry back to the editing room and cut that scene out before the screening started, which she did. I know the studio liked this scene, but the only thing I'm sort of missing from it are those nice images of Charlotte walking down the hallway. Another change is originally Janice met B much earlier. The first time Janice goes into B's room, B puts her hand on her and tells her to hide. B's actually still in that scene for a split second if you look carefully frame by frame. We thought about having VFX paint her out, but I figured it could be a spooky Easter egg to keep her in there. Janice then met B again during the night when Carol and Nancy are telling ghost stories about Mrs. Mullins.
Linda?
The other night, dear, as I...
It's not a terrible scene. It's mostly one long take that at first shows the foot of the bed, and then we frame that out so one of the prop guys could put Annabelle in. But we felt that not having Ghost Bee appear until later in the film would have more of an impact once we do see her.
Hello? Let's be friends. She's coming!
Once Janice got possessed, she originally just hung around the house for a while, which felt weird pacing-wise. The scene with Linda and the pop gun originally came later in the film, after Janice had gotten possessed. Linda heads to her bedroom when she sees Janice in her wheelchair downstairs. After that was the scene where Linda sees Annabelle through the keyhole, and we get into the whole pop gun sequence. After Linda had run up into her bed, we originally panned out into the dark, where Janice came rolling in with Annabelle in her lap. Lulu and Talitha did a great job as always, but I never really liked the scene.
Janice? You shouldn't have that doll. Shh. Janice?
Janice eventually gets into the lower bunk. Linda decides to peek down, and that's when she sees Annabelle grabbed by a demon hand. So Linda seeing footprints was a later addition. The next day, Linda goes downstairs and discovers that everyone else has gone into town. It's just her and Janice alone in the house. Not wanting to be in the house with creepy Janice, Linda eventually goes out onto the porch where Mr. Mullins finds her.
Sister Charlotte? You slept late, Linda. Where's everyone else?
Since I wanted to move the popgun scene to earlier in the film, we needed to bridge the scene where Carol tells Linda to go to bed and the scene where Linda is sitting on the porch. We had shot the house during the night when Linda went to the well, and we'd shot it during the day from almost the same position. VFX were able to make the two shots line up perfectly and then add a cool transition from night to day. Now it looks so good, it seems like we always planned it that way. Another thing we got rid of to speed things up once Janet got possessed was a scene where, after Mr. Mullins gets killed, Mrs. Mullins tells Charlotte that they have to leave the next day. They're not welcome in the house anymore.
Mrs. Mullins.
Leave! You and the girls! You need to leave tonight!
Mrs. Mullins, please.
The girls are crying because that means they will now get split up and sent to different orphanages. Carol enters the room, and for once, she's not a bitch and tells Linda that they're all family. That's one thing I was sad to see go, a scene that showed Carol not always being a total bitch.
Hey. Don't worry. We're leaving here, but we're staying together. Because we're family. And that's what families do.
A scene that was cut was Mrs. Mullins meeting the demon. Before the girls find her dead, we had her getting a Bible yanked out of her hands. It lands next to Annabelle that starts floating up into the air, kind of like she does in Annabelle 1, and we see that it's actually the demon holding on to Annabelle. It simply wasn't a great scene, so we took it out. Two big changes towards the end of the film was what happens in the barn and in the dumbwaiter. Originally in the barn, Carol encountered evil Mrs. Mullins instead of the scarecrow. I always felt that the scene could have been better, so when it came to do additional photography, that was one of the things I wanted another shot at. Although Alicia as evil Mrs. Mullins was kind of cool. We'd already had the scarecrow outside, but all it used to do was land on the car in a cheap jump scare. What originally happened in the dumbwaiter was also an encounter with evil Mrs. Mullins. Linda never made it into the room downstairs. Instead, evil Mrs. Mullins came crawling into the dumbwaiter shaft. We felt it made more sense to have it be Janice coming after Linda, and I wanted to add some extra creepiness by having Linda step into the dark bedroom downstairs. Originally, evil Mrs. Mullins made one more appearance before Linda hides in Annabelle's closet. Seeing evil Mrs. Mullins was the motivation for Linda to go into Bee's room, but it felt like it was too much, like Linda was running around in a haunted house, which she kind of is, but still. Lastly, there was one sequence that was cut, or rather modified, during shooting after we'd already shot part of it. Instead of playing hide and seek, the girls played a game called Sardines. The difference being that once you find the person hiding, you hide with them. So eventually there's only one person looking and everyone else is packed like sardines in a hiding place. We only shot the hiding girls being found in a closet by Charlotte before we realized that it was way too much setup with explaining what sardines was and everything, so we had to simplify. Instead, we got one more scene of Carol being a huge bitch.
Если вам понравилось это видео, ставь лайк и подписывайтесь на мой канал. С вами был Черный Феникс. До скорой встречи. Пока.